pyroclastic flows did not wait for permission. 14 of them, in a single night, racing down a mountain that 200,000 people live within 10 kilometers of, at temperatures that melt flesh before it can register pain. This is Mayon Volcano, and what happened in the last 24 hours is not a news story about ash in the air. It is a story about a mountain that is shedding itself, piece by burning piece, onto the most populated volcanic flank in the Philippines. And the agency that watches it around the clock just told the world that yesterday was not the peak. Yesterday was the floor. At 5:38 in the afternoon, on the south face of the mountain, the front of the Mayon Gully lava flow stopped moving forward. Not because the eruption paused. Not because the crater above went quiet. It stopped because the cooled, stacked, piled mass of older lava at the leading edge could no longer hold itself together under the weight of new material still arriving from above. It buckled. It broke. And at 5:39, the first pyroclastic density current was already running. By midnight, there had been 14 of them. 14 separate collapse-generated flows of superheated gas and fragmented rock, each one traveling at the kind of speed and temperature that renders evacuation zones not as safety lines but as survival calculations. By dawn, the sensors operated by the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology had logged 284 separate rockfall events, 32 volcanic earthquakes in the same window, 25 of them tremor events lasting between 2 and 15 minutes each. The mountain was not quiet between the flows. It was continuously loading. Here is the critical detail that most coverage is not leading with. PHIVOLCS, the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology, the agency that has been watching this mountain without interruption for 117 consecutive days, announced at midday on Sunday that it had officially ruled out a frito-magmatic eruption. That announcement sounds like relief. It is not, because they made that announcement and then held the alert at exactly where it was. Alert level 3. 3 out of 5. Not 2. Not 4. 3. They did not announce a slowdown. They did not announce the beginning of an end. They announced what the mountain is not doing, and then confirmed that everything it is doing continues. Maria Antonia Bornes, chief of the Volcano Monitoring and Eruption Prediction Division at PHIVOLCS, described on Sunday how the pyroclastic flows were generated. The lava flow in Mayon Gully, instead of continuing to grow and advance, began to collapse. Disgorgement at the front of the flow generated successive pyroclastic density currents. Doreen Abalahin, officer in charge of the Mayon Volcano Observatory, described it more directly: consecutive pyroclastic density currents caused by collapse at the lava front. The eruption itself did not intensify. The mountain simply shed weight downhill. That weight was moving at approximately 700 degrees Celsius. That is the standard internal temperature of a pyroclastic density current. Understand the geography. Mayon stands at the head of Albay province in the Baikal region of southeast Luzon. 10 kilometers south of its summit is Legazpi City. Population: 200,000. 9 kilometers northeast is Tabaco City. Population: 140,000. 6 kilometers southwest is the town of Camalig, where most of the new evacuees are coming from. And right now, at this moment, 3 separate rivers of lava are moving down the mountain simultaneously. One flow has reached 3.8 kilometers down the Basid Gully on the east face. Another reaches 3.2 kilometers down the Banga Gully on the southeast. The third, the one that just generated 14 pyroclastic flows in a single night, reaches 1.6 kilometers down Mayon Gully on the south. For 116 days, the most dangerous flow was Basid, on the east. On day 117, it was Mayon on the south. The mountain rotated its threat. The permanent danger zone exists on the map as a 6-kilometer ring drawn around the summit. PHIVOLCS draws it. The provincial government enforces it. Yesterday afternoon, that line was crossed. Reading directly from the May 3rd bulletin, the agency confirmed that pyroclastic density currents were generated within Mayon Gully, specifically inside the permanent danger zone. The line on the map became, for a window of hours yesterday afternoon, a surface across which 700-degree debris traveled. There were no casualties. There were also residents who, as late as last week, had been entering that same zone with municipality-issued day passes. to feed pigs and chickens that represent months of household income. Mayon is not waiting for evacuation orders. It is producing retroactive ones. And this is where the scope of the crisis widens in ways that most international coverage has not caught up to yet. Right now, 5,440 residents are sheltering across 14 evacuation centers in Albay province. 52 barangays are buried under fresh ash. The main highway through southern Luzon, the Maharlika Highway, the primary arterial connecting this region to Manila, was reduced to near-zero visibility on Saturday afternoon. Motorists were running headlights at midday. By dawn Sunday, residents were clearing a national road by hand, with brooms. The Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines suspended Bicol-bound flights early Sunday. At least 2 Cebu Pacific flights were canceled. More than 230 passengers were rerouted by overland bus through the ash. At Tagaytay Elementary School in Barangay Tagaytay, families arrived at the gates this morning carrying what they could. At Berry Elementary School in Barangay Berry, classrooms have been converted into family rooms. At Camalig Bornis Evacuation Center in Barangay Bangabanga, 50 modular tents are standing folded, waiting. 8,000 households in Camalig alone are inside the affected zone. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. issued a whole-of-government directive on Sunday afternoon: aid, road clearing, evacuations. The Department of Public Works and Highways has already begun manual clearing operations. But here is what is almost entirely absent from foreign reporting. The threat is not only above the residents sheltering in those schoolyards. The threat is also below. The Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, the country's national weather agency, is forecasting afternoon to evening rainfall across the Bicol region for the next several days. Benison Astoria, weather specialist at Pagasa, has warned that heavy rains over Mayon's flanks at this stage of an eruption can trigger lahars, volcanic mud flows that surge down drainage channels at speeds no human can outrun. The volcano has been depositing loose material on its flanks for 117 consecutive days. 52 barangays now sit under a fresh ash blanket. The drainage channels that empty Mayon, the Padua, the Burabad, the Buyuen, the Mananila, the Anoling, the Trevisia, are positioned to capture every centimeter of that loose material the moment a sufficient rain band crosses the province. Phivolcs maintains a standing lahar advisory. The eruption above is not the only threat. The slope below it is now a threat too. And the conditions that generated last night's 14 pyroclastic flows have not changed. Maria Antonia Bornas confirmed on Sunday that there has been no significant change in Mayon's overall monitoring parameters since Saturday's collapse. The crater is still feeding lava into Mayasay Gully. The flow front is still loading. The same configuration that produced one sequence of collapse-driven flows is, as of this bulletin, still fully present. Phivolcs has not announced when the alert level will drop. It has not announced when the airspace will reopen. It has given no forecast for when the families now sleeping in tents inside those schoolyards will be allowed to go home. The question is no longer whether the mountain will collapse again. Collapsed 14 times in a single night. The question is no longer whether the danger zone will be breached. It already has been. The question now, the one sitting under a standing lahar advisory that almost no foreign outlet is reporting, is whether the rain in the forecast this week turns that ash-saturated slope into the next bulletin to escalate. The mountain is not exploding. It is shedding. The lava is still feeding. The flow in Mayasay is still loading. The rain is still coming. And inside the schoolyards of Camalig, the families who arrived this morning are still unfolding the tents that were already waiting for them.